Hi there, welcome to my video review and critique of some of the features of the Digitech RP1000. I'm not trying to be thorough in my review of this particular unit. I'm just trying to highlight things that I haven't seen mentioned in other videos or reviews. The first thing I want to talk about is the durability. The positives, well, to be honest, there's way too many. This thing is built like a tank. Solid metal all around, top, bottom, sides, the backs. Look at all the panels. Even this front panel here you'd think would be plastic, but it's metal. All these switches are sweet. They use the big heavy vacuum switches. I will say it's a nice type of switch because they're not likely to break, but as you can see from these pictures, they're not mounted onto the main circuit board, which is nice. So even if they do break, they're really easily replaceable, and it's not much of a problem. Even with some moderate to simple soldering skills, you could fix it. There are a couple negatives though. First off, the vacuum switches are fairly loud, so if you think you're playing a small show or you're playing a small coffee house or something, it might just be a bit annoying if there's a quiet part in the song and you have to change a patch. You get this massive BAM! The other issue, it's not such a big issue, but these little knobs here in the center, these are for changing the patches on the fly. It's called your matrix. This is where you change all your tone and effects and everything. And if you ever need to change anything during a gig in the middle of a song, this is where you'll be doing it. But these aren't metal. These are sort of a cheap plastic knobs, and that wouldn't be a problem, except these knobs, even the shafts to the knobs, are kind of a cheap plastic. So if this thing got kicked or bumped too hard, then it would break right off. Luckily though, if you can tell right from the front here, it is recessed into the unit, so it's not that big a deal. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to cause any damage to those, but just something to be aware of. This is something I complain about with most gear designed for gigging. It uses this cheap power adapter. I mean, one trip on this cable and it'll probably stop working. So buy backups or mount it onto your pedal board that has its own power supply with a separate plug into the wall, and it won't be a problem, but just something to be aware of. Regarding the modeling, first the positives. To my ears, there's a lot of improvement in the modeling over previous generations of modelers. The 4-cable method sounds great. It's really innovative in my opinion. And the other thing I like about this particular unit is there's no tone suck. I've used other modelers with the 4-cable method and found that there's a little bit of tone lost from your amp. The preamp modeling is good. It's decent. It's good enough for you can run it into your own power amp and cab, and it sounds really good. Or let's say a Tech 21 power engine or something like that. The cabinet modeling, it is not the greatest, but it's decent enough that I run it direct for live use and for recording. But other people may be a little more stringent about that. The effects are great for the price range. I'd say they rival anything else in the similar range. I'm not going to go through every amp and effect and cabinet and demo each one because, well, first off, there's an awful lot of them, as you can see. I'm scrolling through here. So the video would be super long. Second, there's a lot of other videos that already do that, so I have no intention of doing that. The main negative, and this is something that you'll find with most budget modelers, you have to be creative in your patch building. You can't expect to pick a Marshall and sound like a Marshall, or pick a Mesa Boogie and sound like a Mesa Boogie. You do have to be really creative with using different amps and cabinets and stomp boxes and EQs and compressors to try and find the sound you're looking for. Don't expect to just pick an amp and sound like that amp. One question that gets asked a lot of me is how does it respond to things like volume control changes and changes in pick attack and different variations and things like that. And to be honest, the best thing I can do is demo it for you. So here's a little demo of how well the unit does in that respect. Okay, there's two ways to set up the floorboard. The first is using preset mode. All 10 switches can be used to access a preset. And as a preset mode user myself, it's nice to have 10 available all the time without having to bank up and down. And most modelers usually have maybe 3, 4, or 5 at a time that you can use. So it's nice that there's a little bit extra in this one. Now, there is some signal drop when switching between presets. I clocked the signal drop at 30 milliseconds. I tried using really complex presets and really simple presets, and it always worked out to 30 milliseconds. So just interesting the way they designed the board to use the same DSP for every single preset. There is, unfortunately, no effects bleed between presets either. So that means if you're on a lead patch that has reverbs and delays, when you go off the lead patch onto a patch that doesn't have reverbs and delays, they just die off, like they were never there to begin with. So here's a quick demo of what that sounds like. Another thing you can do is use Pedalboard Mode, which is accessed by this little switch here. And as soon as you do that, then each of the 5 buttons in the top row become your different stomp boxes, and each of the 5 buttons in the bottom row become presets, 1 to 5. And when you bank up, it is now banking in sets of 5 instead of 10. Pedalboard Mode is nice because you can turn effects on and off and without losing your signal. But when you have reverb or delay, again, let's say you're playing with a patch with a lot of reverb, as soon as you turn the reverb off, it just dies off. The effect tails don't continue for a couple seconds as they should. I should mention, by default, each of the stomp switches work as they're labeled. So this one's typically reverb, this one's delay, etc., etc. But you can actually reprogram them and to modify almost any parameter changes you want. And that includes the expression pedal too. You can do things like change the delay mix or a lot of other things. The only downside is that each switch is only limited to one parameter change. So it'll either turn an effect, let's say, on or off, or it'll change a level from 25 to 45 or something like that. You can't link multiple changes to one switch, unfortunately. But when you depress the wah pedal fairly hard just by stepping on it, it'll switch on the wah or off. But unfortunately that can't be linked to anything else. Whenever you step down on the pedal and engage that switch, it'll always be a wah pedal. And I do have a little tiny gripe about the wah switch. It's not a physical switch underneath it. It's actually a pressure gauge, and it's really finicky. Sometimes you feel like you barely touch it and it turns on. Sometimes you feel like you're putting all your body weight on it and it doesn't turn on. And the other thing that's a little bit frustrating too about that wah switch is because it's not a physical switch, you don't feel it switching on and off underneath your foot, which can be a little frustrating. Like, let's say you can't see to the display, you're playing in a bright show where there's bright lights, or you're playing outdoors and it's hard to see it. So when it flashes on and tells you the wah's on, it's really not obvious if it's really bright and you can't see the display, so you're just kind of going by feel or by how you hear it. And sometimes it's a little too late. You've already ruined a small part of the song by missing that. So it just would have been nice if it was a hard physical switch and not a pressure switch. Regarding the programming matrix here, you can take it or leave it. Some people love it, some people hate it. I've used previous Digitech units that had a matrix that was similar to this, so it was a very small learning curve, and I can change patches on the fly really quickly. However, I do know that people coming from other companies or people who have used other companies' units trying to grasp the matrix thing will take a little bit. There are a few things about this particular matrix that bothers me. As it sounds like all I do is complain. But there's actually a couple legitimate concerns. The first, if I go through edit here and I come down to the EQ, I want the EQ on. See, I have the EQ on or off. That's this switch here. I have a low level adjustment. This is mid frequency, mid adjustment, high frequency, and high adjustment. So this is your parametric EQ. But there's a few things missing. Number one is, where's my ability to modify the low frequency? Anyone who runs direct into the board, something really important, and most people who do that know this, is the low frequency, and being able to control what the low frequency is, being able to EQ that low frequency in or out depending on the kind of PA system you're going through. So it's drastically frustrating for people who go full range that there's no EQ adjustment on here readily for the low frequency. The next thing is that, and this is, I don't really care about this one to be honest, but somebody might. If you're going through your distortion models and you turn on a distortion model, and let's say, you go through and you pick, where's the metal zone pedal? There you go, your metal zone. Now anybody's used the metal zone was my first pedal, and I loved it, but I'm a little older now. I guess I realize it's not the greatest pedal in the world, but to each his own. It has low, mids, highs, and level and gain, obviously. Well, the actual metal zone pedal also has a mid sweep, and anyone who's a metal fan knows that that mid sweep is really important for getting the sound you want. So those are the two things really that I've noticed. I'm sure there are other little things here and there, but those are the two sort of major ones that I've noticed that people might want to consider when they're thinking about getting this particular unit. Okay, this does have a 20-second looper on board. Now I don't have a lot to say about the looper because I'm not really a looper user typically. I did notice a few negatives that might want to be highlighted though if you're a looper user. Number one, there's no foot switch to engage the looper anywhere on the unit. There's just this little switch right here. So if you're in a live setting and you want to kick on your looper really quickly, you either have to bend over and hit this button by hand, or you can buy a separate looper control that connects to the back here. Right here, looper control. Now, that's not so bad though. But one serious negative that I've discovered is an issue with changes in tone that, in my opinion, shouldn't really be happening. First off, if you engage the looper and you start playing a guitar part that has heavy stereo effects, let's say you're using patch number 30 here, which is very, very thick, kind of wide stereo field effects. The second you finish recording it and you engage the looper, it becomes a mono sound. The second thing, and this is an issue as well that I noticed that I found frustrating because literally I don't use loopers. Sorry. What happens is when you switch between a patch using an acoustic model, record it and loop it, and then you change while that acoustic model recording is looping, when you switch to a model of an amp and cab, then you'll get the cab sim and the acoustic sim, which really should be a direct sound, will run through the cab sims of the patch that you have that has cabinets, which doesn't make any sense why they would do that, because if you have two different cab sims on two different patches, it won't route the previous signal through the new cab sim or the other way around. It only for some reason does it with an acoustic patch. And conversely, the same is opposite true going backwards. If you're on a patch that uses an amp and a cab, and then you loop it, record it, and loop it, and then once you switch to an acoustic patch to layer your next little acoustic part, you'll actually wind up with a amp cab signal that sounds like it's direct, which for those of you who know much about, even know a little bit about sound, you know that would sound awful. You get all these nasty highs and buzzing, and it's just gross. So let me give you a little demo just to highlight those issues. I just want to give you a little word to the wise. This applies to any review or demo of any piece of equipment that you see online. No review or demo is really anything more than that particular user's opinion about the product. And if it focuses like me, like I focused very much on a lot of negatives in this video, but let me tell you, there are an awful lot of positives. So don't just take this video and think, wow, it's a terrible unit. No, you know what? Go out there, continue reading, read more opinions, read more about all of the good features it has, and really go out and try one, to be honest. You should never ever buy gear based on another person's experience. Get to a store with your guitar, your own headphones, and try it for yourself. That's really the only way to do it. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more videos of the RP1000. Leave a comment below if you have any questions that maybe you have about features that I didn't address, and I'll do my best to answer them. Also, feel free to ask for tone requests for a certain artist or a certain song, and if I've got some time, I'll try and make a video and a patch for you that'll, even though it won't be exactly what you need, because your guitar will likely be different than mine, different wood, different pickups and everything, but it'll at least give you a starting point for trying to give you the kind of sound you're looking for. So maybe I can help out. Maybe we can help each other out. Anyways, that's it. Peace out.